Hello everyone and welcome to Talking Reds Live here in the Anfield Wrap bunker. My name is Stewart and I'm joined by Harriet Pryor. Harriet, we've all had a bit of a break from the relentlessness of Liverpool. Do you feel a bit refreshed? How have you enjoyed your time away?
Yeah, first of all, you make our studio sound so low-key, you know, in a bunker. Look at it, it's lovely.
I mean...
No, it's been nice, to be honest, hasn't it? I think, especially when the midweek games are going to be coming up thick and fast, because it seems like actually even without Champions League football, those midweeks are filling up. It's going to be a bit relentless when we go back. So it's been nice just to pause and have 2 weeks to get scared about City, Arsenal, Chelsea coming up. So no, it's been nice. Have you enjoyed yours?
I have. I spent some time with family. I got away, I touched some grass, as they say, and I did enjoy most of that time. But yeah, as you mentioned, we've gotten straight back in with both feet. We've got big games coming up against City, Chelsea and Arsenal. We're going to kind of build up to those, but we're going to kind of look at what our lads have been doing on this break, because they haven't been relaxing. They have been actually playing some football, and for some of them, it's gone really well. For some of them, less well. And we're going to kind of do a good and a bad list, and we're going to do a talking point on each of those lists to just see where we feel we stand in the build-up to City. So, on the good list, I have Andy Robertson, obviously got an assist and a win last night against Spain for Scotland, which is...
Convincing win.
Convincing win.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff. Curtis Jones, a very nice goal and an assist for the under-21s against France, beating a very, very talented French under-21 team. Ibu Konate, another talented Frenchman, got 2 starts, 2 wins, looked very convincing for France. Mo Salah, another one with a goal and assist for Egypt, I think against Malawi.
Inevitable.
Inevitable, yes, but still always nice to talk about. Naby Keita scored a goal and did really well.
Don't say nice things,
still managed to get substituted at half-time. Although I think this was kind of on more of a precaution. I don't think he was actually injured. And of course, Cody Gakpo, who had his little virus, but came back and managed to make some minutes. So which of those do you want to do a deeper dive into?
Oh, have I got the choice?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? Can we do a couple? Because I want to start with Curtis Jones just quickly, because there's not like loads to talk about, but I just do want to talk about the fact that he's clearly well enough to be playing football, and that's kind of blown my mind a bit, because I was wondering, some days he wasn't even making the squads, and I was thinking, is this by choice? Is he injured? Is something going on there? So it's interesting that he has played and that he has seemingly played quite well. So yeah, interesting on that one. We can do a bit of chat about Gakpo, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, on the Curtis Jones thing, I'm like you. I think that the kind of absence of talk and the absence of him is growing suspicious in terms of what the management really feel about him and how much of a future he has. But then whenever you see him come on like that and show the quality he undoubtedly has, I think you do wonder whether or not he's ever going to get the chance to get that run of games that he can show that kind of consistency. So,
do you know what though he did last season when we were really, really good towards the end? Like he had a run of a few games. I can't remember which ones he played in Southampton. I think he played towards the end of last season, and he was like kind of integrated in the team a bit more. And then people were thinking maybe that's setting him up to this season be like a bigger part. And then the midfield's kind of capitulated, and I wonder if he's been a bit of a victim of that kind of capitulation, because Klopp's not want to throw him into a team that's essentially like crumbling in that midfield area and say, okay, pick up the pieces when he's not capable of that.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like a kind of protecting him a little bit from that and the outside kind of criticism that would inevitably lead from that.
There definitely would lead from that.
Yeah.
The problem he has though, and I think it's a wider problem than just this, is Harvey Elliott, who's younger than him and has literally been thrown in at any point. Interestingly enough, Curtis actually played more for the under-21s than Harvey did. He seems a little bit more of a senior player within that squad. Yeah. So I think it's almost like, as much as he's a good teammate and obviously probably a good friend, Harvey's becoming a bit of a problem for Curtis, and probably will be for a bit of time to come.
Yeah, I think Harvey's been really interesting. I think he's the only player, isn't he, that's been involved in every single game this season, which is a bit mind-blowing considering, like I just mentioned, the midfield kind of falling apart. But every time, like, people are critical of Harvey Elliott, right? And I'm like a really big fan of his. Every time I watch him play, like especially at Anfield when I've not got like any commentary to kind of bias what I'm looking at, I'm like genuinely really impressed with him and what he manages to do on the ball. Obviously there's sloppy mistakes and all those things that you'd expect from any young player and young midfielder in particular. But especially in a team that's not been performing that well, I think he has been good, and maybe people will, you know, hate on me for that, but I'm all right with him, basically.
To hell with those people.
I want to see him here in the future. I think he's got a future at Liverpool.
I do think he's got a future.
That's what I think. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say as well. Considering the potential for so much upheaval within the midfield, I think he's probably a little bit more secure where he is in the than Curtis is.
Yeah.
So let's talk Cody then. He had a bit of a virus. They didn't name the virus, so I'm assuming it wasn't COVID. But obviously when you've got a virus like that, it means you're a bit lethargic, you can't really train much. And he was able to get, I believe it was about 35 minutes for the Netherlands in their second game against Gibraltar. Do you think if he is okay, he's starting for you at City?
Yeah, 100% he is. And I've just been really, and another one I've actually been impressed with. It's not that many of them. It sounds like I'm being overly positive about a team that's not been that good. But he is one that I think, especially because he got a lot of criticism early on and like people putting memes up and saying, you know, he's not going to settle in. He should have just gone to United, all these things. And I was like, let's just give him a minute. And now I think that front three with Nunes and Salah starting to link up really well. I think he took a while to adjust to playing through the middle as well. He didn't look like he was natural there, and now he's starting to feel like he is. I don't think he was expecting it. No, well, I mean, I literally think he was like, kind of, it was needs must, wasn't it, with Jota out and the injuries and stuff. So, yeah, he was kind of thrown in there, see if it stuck, and I think it is starting to stick.
Yeah, definitely is. And I agree with you. I think what we saw from the big game mentality that he produced against Man United, I think, was really kind of telling to say that he can be a starter in the big games. And I think the way that this has all been set up with the international break leading into this really pivotal period of the season, I think he's still going to have that confidence from when he was last in a red shirt. I think he's a really good one to go with. Scored
against Everton and then United, which just means he just loves Liverpool, doesn't he?
Well,
he's
exactly.
Just like, don't worry, guys, I don't need to score in these first 2 games, but you wait, and they'll all come.
We need a guy who turns it on for the big occasions. Now the Divok's gone, and now the Sadio's gone.
Yeah.
So if Gakpo can take up that role, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, I think one thing with him is when he first was starting, and I think you still do see it in the game a bit now, is he felt like he had longer on the ball than he actually did. And that's probably adjusting, isn't it, to the Premier League and how basically on you every single team are as soon as you get the ball. But it's like his touch was a little bit slow, and he was a little bit like, oh, I can wait a minute here, and then he didn't have that time. That's the kind of adjustment that he's making now, but he seems to be doing it well.
He has been doing it well, and I look forward to seeing what else the future brings. It's time to look at the bad list now. Unfortunately, head of the bad list is Cody's international teammate and father, Virgil van Dijk. I mean, he is his international football father. Virgil did not play well against France. They got hammered 4-0, and he was then subsequently hammered by Ruud Gullit and Marco van Basten. Some of what they were saying was pretty harsh. I mean, it's something that Dutch commentators are known for, generally being quite harsh, particularly ex-players, but I mean, it was some heavy quotes. Kostas Tsimikas is also on the bad list. Unfortunately, he managed to get himself injured in the game against Lithuania.
Badly, or?
It's kind of, they said it was an unserious injury, but I mean, Kostas is generally an unserious dude, so I don't know what that means. But when you're looking at, again, well, you're saying about 4 midweeks and these 3 big games, there's a high chance that he would have played if he can. And I mean, hopefully he still can. And it might seem a little bit harsh to have Diogo Jota on the bad list, but he played 3 minutes. Portugal had 2 games against Liechtenstein and Luxembourg, scored 10 goals, and he scored 3 minutes. So technically he's not on the bad list. Roberto Martinez is on the bad list. You had the chance to do us a favour there, because Diogo's absolutely gagging for a goal.
Yeah.
So which of those 3 would you like to do a deeper dive into?
I'm going to park Virgil because, you know, that happened and we don't need to throw fuel on the fire. Let's talk about Jota a little bit more.
Okay, that's good for me because I actually wrote an article all about this, the top 8. I think if you look at the impact that Jota had when he was great last season, one of the most underrated things about it is how much he broke the ice in games where it was tight or where we were struggling. I think 10 of his 21 goals were the first goal in the game, and that's such an underrated weapon to have. If you look at how we've played this season, every time we've scored the first goal in the game, we've won it, in the league at least. So that's why I'm so desperate to get that Jota back. But when we see him playing at the moment, he just looks so desperate for a goal.
Yeah, he was such an impact player, wasn't he? And someone who you could kind of bank on to score from random situations, even if he wasn't playing that well. He'd like pop up with a header, which you're like, why is he scoring headers and all these things? And then I think this season, he's just not had the impact that we kind of hoped and need from him. And I wonder if some of that's down to obviously the injuries and him coming back from that and not fully being ready to come back. There's been a thing this season, I think, where Liverpool have just bought players back a little bit too early because they've had no choice. So they're physically fit, fine, but last season they maybe wouldn't have rushed him back at the pace they have this season because they need a bit more mental time to just know what their role is and where they've got to go again. We haven't got that luxury this season, so they have been thrown in. I think he's suffered maybe from that. He's just looked a little bit flat, a little bit like he's not entirely sure what his role is and where he needs to kind of find the spaces that he came really instinctively to him. But I think he'll be fine again. I think he just needs a bit of regular game time, which he might find a bit hard to get with the front three that we were talking about before.
Well, this is the thing. I think you touched on a really good point there in terms of his standing within the team. Because if you think about that period when he was flying, towards the end of 2021 into the beginning of 2022, Liverpool signed 3 forwards since then.
Yeah.
So his place in the pecking order, even his place literally on the pitch, has probably changed fundamentally. And when you're coming back from injury, yes, you need to have a kind of slow build-up of the minutes to make sure you don't get injured again. But you do also need a bit of rhythm to get yourself back into goal-scoring form. And it's like, again, the same as with Curtis, is he going to get that?
Yeah, well, he's getting sort of 30 minutes, isn't he, towards the end of games, but is that enough if you're not in that mentality where you're just knocking in goals? But I do think with him, it's as soon as he gets the first one.
Yes.
And also I think he's a really popular player for Klopp. Like, Klopp really likes Diogo Jota, and you can see that with how much he used him when we were flying and how much he trusted him and to come in that team and have a really big role. So I think he'll keep getting those opportunities, and I think it'll be a good challenge for him, like being up against Núñez and Gakpo for those positions, and really like kind of all three of them raising their levels and battling with each other a little bit and knowing that they have to get it. But playing with pressure on the backs has been a big problem this season, that they've looked as a team collectively like they've really struggled with the pressure, the fact that they're not just like inevitably going into games and winning. They've looked like they've struggled with that. And yeah, Gakpo, we saw as soon as he got the goal, it was like, okay, I'm okay now. Núñez the same, I'm okay now. So Jota just needs to be the same because we know he's capable of it. We've seen it. We've seen how good he is.
92nd in the world, by the way, Luxembourg were. 92nd in the world. And yet you decided Cristiano Ronaldo absolutely has to play, despite the fact he broke all the records. Sorry, I'm getting annoyed now.
It's another show, Mo.
It is another show. Hopefully that one that he just needs will come in this game against City and can be the start of a run. Because to be honest, one of his favourite opponents is coming up, which is Arsenal. He always seems to score against Arsenal.
He does,
so let's hope that continues ASAP. In the second half of the show, we will be answering some of your questions, or at least looking at some of your questions that you've put in over the course on the live text. But we're also going to be discussing the Jurgen Klopp documentary that we have so lovingly put out for you. Parts 4 and 5 have just been released in the past week. And to get you wetted for that, for those of you who don't know, we have a little bit of clip of Steven Gerrard and Jurgen Klopp talking about being in the pub.
I was sitting outside my local pub. It was a real sunny early evening. He was walking the dog. I was sitting outside with one of my friends, having a couple of pints, and I shouted over to wish him good luck because he had a Champions League final days later, not weeks, days later. I thought he'd be in the zone, he'd be like proper, you know, blah, blah. He's walking his dog, and he said to me, no, go to the bar and get me a pint. He ended up having 2 or 3. He had a couple of smokes. His dog waited patiently, and we had a good crack for probably over an hour, 90 minutes, about football, about life in Liverpool, about, you know, his plans for the future. He gave me some nuggets in terms of what he was planning to do in the Champions League final. He was just a real great company to have, and he was fantastic with me mate. He made them feel part of the conversation, and I think that just sums the man up. He's a genuine, humble character who's got a presence and an aura, and at the same time he's one of the most gifted managers there's ever been. That's a special person for me.
There you go. Jurgen Klopp, just like the rest of us, enjoys his pint. I love all of these parts, the kind of candid parts, and but not only just hearing about Klopp the human, but Gerrard himself, he's brilliant in these new bits. Just how much of the fan in him comes through when he's talking about the teams that he's not really a part of, but he just kind of feels it like we do.
Yeah, I think that episode 5 in particular has really nice candid moments where you hear kind of off the cuff Jurgen Klopp stories that none of us have ever heard before. I think a lot of the things about Klopp we kind of know already, but these last 2 episodes, it's like so many hidden gems in there that I've just loved watching. I felt really emotional and sentimental about. It's been really lovely. But yeah, the Gerrard bits in particular, like you mentioned, is just so insightful. Like you get a real insight into how kind of much I think he wished he could have played under Jurgen Klopp. Like that's the main takeaway I got from it, is that he would have taken just a month just to experience it, and you can see their relationship that they do have and how close they are, and how kind of the past of Liverpool is so important to Klopp. And I know that Gerrard, when he joined, wasn't like far in the past, but he still wanted to really keep that relationship, keep that connection, because he knows how important Gerrard is to the fans, and he knows how important, there's bits from Jamie Webster even, and he knows how important that kind of music scene is to the fans. He knows what the city means to the fans, and he's made sure that he kind of understands every single element, and he's gone above and beyond what he needs to do as a football manager of the football team to really get the whole fan base in the city. And I think that's, something we should never take for granted and should really cherish.
I think the most remarkable thing about it is watching that you get the sense that he really is the perfect man for this club. But then watching the documentary, you also realise that he was actually the perfect man for those 2 other clubs as well.
Yeah.
And how they still feel and revere for him shows this guy's really special. Like, there's at least 3 places in the world that he can go that he's always going to be revered for the rest of his life. And I mean, I don't really have that. I don't even know what that feels like. I would love to have it,
Most jealous that Klopp's popular in 3 cities. You're like, what are my cities?
Where can I be? Where can I call home? I mean,
that's hilarious. I think there's a real synergy, isn't there, between Dortmund and Liverpool? And I've kind of always felt that if I've watched Dortmund play or kind of seen their fan base, there's been this real connection between the 2 clubs, and they're more similarities maybe than you kind of think. I mean, when you watch the documentary, you really see this kind of connection that both clubs have, and now we are connected via the manager, via Jurgen Klopp, and the past he's had there. But it's really interesting watching the Dortmund stuff, because obviously he comes to leave, and now I think, they were saying every manager is compared to him. He's the standard of okay, is he as good as Jurgen Klopp? And I think at times this season people are being critical of the manager, and he's not above criticism, and he'll make mistakes like any other person. But when you see the journey they've been on since he left, you're like, you really want to be sticking this man around for as long as possible, because he is a one-of-a-kind manager that would be so hard to replace. I don't even want to think about the day that he's not with us anymore. So just don't ever advocate for it online, basically.
Well, I mean, luckily Jurgen doesn't read any of the stuff online. Well, to be honest, I mean, I suspect he has a burner, to be honest. But he doesn't officially read anything online.
Not in the documentary.
So for those of you who aren't subscribers, you will have to wait for 4 and 5 to appear on YouTube, but 2 and 3 are on there, much worth your time and attention. For those of you who are subscribers, go out there and enjoy parts 4 and 5.
You can subscribe on our YouTube channel now as well. You don't even have to get the app. If you just want the Klopp documentary, you can just join on YouTube.
There you go. If you are just so desperate to watch that show based on our wonderful testimonies, I can't really blame you. Before we move on from this subject, I wanted to give a shout out to the man behind the, 2 men behind the camera in particular, Jordan Singleton and Fuad Hassan, who have been working tirelessly on this project. Every time I've come into this office in the last 6 or 7 months or so, it feels like they've got their head in front of a screen, headphones on, diligently working hard to bring you the product, and 100%. It really comes through. So I want to give a shout out to them too, particularly because they're not here to see it.
Because they're having a well-earned day off, because it was out yesterday and they were very happy. They just keep saying, it's a team project, and it was, and everyone was involved in some way. But those 2 have been tirelessly and effortlessly working to make it as good as it can be. So much work has gone into it, I can't even describe. So for sure.
And I mean, all of us who you regularly see in front of the camera, we're always going to be able to get any of the credit, but those guys behind it, they really deserve it as much. Maybe not Sam so much, but those two.
Sam is never allowed a day off, you know, he's just here doing Talking Reds.
Nah. Well, speaking of which, Sam, you can do some work for me. Can you read me out some of these comments?
Yeah, someone's going to be watching the game at his kid's birthday party on Saturday.
Oh, good luck. Best of luck. You can have it on like your phone while they're all singing happy birthday. No one will be looking at you anyway. It'll be absolutely fine.
I mean, it all depends, really. I think you probably know well enough the rest of the guests and how many of them may well frown upon it. Like, for example, the wedding I was at on Sunday was happening at the same time as England against Ukraine. And the best man actually announced the score during his speech.
Unreal.
Because he knew that the groom was mad, like him and the groom were mad into the game. So sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's less so.
Try not to swear if anything bad happens, but nothing bad's going to happen. It'll be fine.
No, you might be able to lead the kids in a nice little song, hopefully the Diogo Jota song. But
Tom's asking, how many points are you taking from City, Chelsea and Arsenal?
well, I mean, 3 from Arsenal, obviously.
If we got 6, I'd be like actually quite happy. If we got 7, I'd be delighted.
I think it's in a weird way. Originally, my mind was thinking you just want to be unbeaten because sometimes a defeat and the way that we react to defeats.
We need to win 1.
But I think the idea of getting 5 points and drawing 2 and winning 1.
I think we need to beat Chelsea because Chelsea aren't in a good way. So I think you need like 3 points there and then. Yeah, 5, 6. If we got,
I think I'd rather 6 than 5, so
Yeah.
I can take a defeat. I mean, I think if the defeat is the first one, it's hard, but then it's probably the most likely if you think about going to the Etihad. And
yeah, particularly bad out of ways and half-12s this season.
Oh my God.
Bring them all to bed and then throw Man City in the mix. It feels like a recipe for a fun day out.
Well, I mean, we should speak about City a little bit. Obviously, Foden's not going to play, and he's been quite dangerous against us in the past, so that can be seen as a positive. They do still have Erling Haaland, who has gone 2 games this season without scoring against us, which makes you feel like it's almost inevitable that he will score against us.
Or it makes you feel like we just really know that we have a Haaland plan. No, let's look at this positively.
We've got a little voodoo doll up our sleeve.
Yeah.
Haaland. I'd love that. I'd love to think that's true. And I'd love to think that the idea that he will potentially struggle against us for the rest of his career, I don't believe it. I think he probably will score. I think what we need to be able to do is concentrate on the fact that City aren't as good defensively as they are at their peak and that we have players who can score too. It might need to be another knockabout 3-2 mad game.
But what worked really well, I think, when we played them at Anfield is that we stood off the press. Like, we let them kind of have the ball in defence, knock it around, play their silly little possession style of football that works so well. And just let them keep the ball and then not put the pressure on. And then as soon as it got to, like, midfield, it was like, go, go, go. And caught them on the counter. And I hate when teams do that against us. But when you kind of know you've not got the upper hand against a team, catching them on the counter, that Mo Salah goal, obviously, can repeat maybe that, then we have a chance, but it will be a tough game.
We've got a chance, no doubt. And City are potentially as vulnerable to post-international break rust as we are.
Yeah.
So going into that game, I think we need to have belief. I think we need to not do something stupid early on and concede a goal and be on the back foot. But I think the most of all, we need to not lose our shit completely if we lose that game. Because we still need to go on and beat Chelsea and Arsenal, just as you said.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's, just kind of getting through this little next period, which is going to be difficult, but seeing how we end up the other side of it and then not losing our heads and thinking all is lost if 1 or 2 don't go our way, even though that will feel hard because we do need to really push if we want to get top 4 now.
And the Arsenal game itself is going to be a tasty one. Yeah. Easter Sunday. They are probably still going to be top of the league by that point. And they will be feeling like it's kind of like the last mountain for them to climb in Anfield, because any Arsenal fan that I've been listening to for the last few years will tell you that that's where good Arsenal teams go to die. And that has been the case for quite some time. So this will be the acid test. If they cannot lose to us, I think that they will believe that the title is theirs.
Yeah, well absolutely speechless. Don't know what to say. I think Arsenal can win the title. I wouldn't mind them winning the title.
Them to win
I'm okay with it.
City.
I'm okay with it. But I'd rather them not win at Anfield. So yeah.
Yeah, I love
no
the
words.
idea.
I never have no words. I just had nothing. Like there was nothing to give. It was.
Well,
Yeah.
all I needed was that look of horror and also recognition on Sam's face that you guys didn't see. That
Yeah.
one was for me. Okay, we there have also been a few kind of new transfer stories that have come out around Liverpool, and noticeably for me, Harriet, they've all been about centre backs.
Yeah.
So Evan Ndika from Eintracht Frankfurt, Kim Min-jae, who plays for Napoli, two very good players, but two centre backs. Now, obviously, you can look at it and say, well, Nat Phillips is leaving. Surely that means that we're going to need one to come in. But when you think about the profile of these guys and how good they have been, and then you think about someone like Vardiol, we're also interested in, who's like a €100 million player, it increasingly looks like one of the four main guys is going to be leaving. And if so, I mean, I think we can take Virgil Konate out of that, really.
I wonder if it's not like they're going to necessarily be leaving, or if they're just not like going to be as high up the pecking order. Like if Nat Phillips goes, as one of them get knocked back into kind of that space, and then one of these comes in above them. I was writing actually this week about like which player I think is playing for their future, and I put Gomez in there as one that's young enough to still actually be a part. He's 25, still be a part of this Liverpool side, but there is a lot of talk now around centre-backs coming in. Does that mean he's inevitably going to be pushed back in that list? So, yeah, it's a difficult one. But also, Virgil's not getting any younger, and I think we need to like kind of face that reality that he's not got long left at like his good years, and someone needs to kind of step up to that afterwards. Konate is the one I can say like for now and the future is going to come good. Matip similar to Virgil, I guess, and also his form's been hit and miss. So I think that's an area everyone will talk about in the field, but I agree that's an area that needs strengthening as well.
I think Matip will probably be more likely to be okay with being a fifth choice if it turns out to be that at this stage in his career.
Yeah.
As you say, Joe Gomez is 25. He's still got loads of career left.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Evan Ndika as well, he's left-footed. So he may well be someone with Virgil in mind.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you will be hearing both of those names in the upcoming Gutter show.
Yeah.
I don't know when the next one is,
Thursday.
but there you go. I was literally going to say, I'm sure Harriet does. And there you go, proving my point.
It's on video as well this week, I believe, so you can get it on YouTube as well.
Now, something I do know that's coming out is a European show, because I recorded it myself yesterday. And it's an absolute cracker, if I may say so myself. We go into all of the madness of Barcelona. We talk about the Italian teams taking over European competition. We talk about PSG being stuck in deja vu again and again and again. And obviously, we go into all of the Bayern Munich, Thomas Tuchel, Julian Nagelsmann stuff. So that is out now?
Today, there's 2 parts, today and tomorrow, I believe.
Today and tomorrow, there you go. So wrap your ears around that. Tell the world how much you love that show, because I love it. Harriet, any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, that's been lovely. Just buy our lovely tops. Abby Rudkin did these, designed these. Super talented. Check her out as well. But yeah, our lovely Klopp tops are for sale. If you watch the documentary and then think, oh, I just love Klopp and I need more, you can buy our merch. So yeah, these are for sale on our shop, on our website. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you all for all your love and comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about all the wonderful stuff that we have here at the Anfield Wrap. See you again soon.